Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Year of Underrated Stephen King podcast. I'm your one-woman host, Kim C., and this is my mighty little Stephen King podcast that investigates and celebrates the writing of Stephen King with all the passion, vigor, devotion, and scholarly power this university fiction teacher can put forth. Thank you all for joining me as the circle closes on a long-time wish of mine that was finally fulfilled right in time for my 39 great years thanks Chuck birthday a few weeks back. Mr. Eric Vespe of the Kingcast gave me the ultimate belated birthday present with this awesome conversation that made my cheeks hurt from smiling too much. Boys and girls, I was such a happy, grinning, laughing weird kid. My whole face was in mucho pain by the end of the interview. I know you guys know, but I don't know if I fully knew just how funny Eric is. He is so funny, totally hysterical. I'm cracking up at almost every question, hence why the face was in such pain, but at the end of the day, fine by me. It was a good problem to have. In case one has just emerged from under a rock and walked out of a cave, Eric Vespe is a longtime writer, film buff, Stephen King podcaster, cat dad to Nick and Nora, and someone who I would proudly introduce as a constant reader star. All capital letters and at least 5 exclamation points. Mr. Vespe has previous writing ties to Ain't It Cool News, Slash Film, Collider, Playboy, Popular Mechanics, Sci-Fi Wire, and Fangoria. Currently, he's co-host of the Kingcast, formerly with the late great Scott Wampler, and now with fellow writer Anthony Bresnikan, who was my last Constant Reader interview, episode 154. Oh, friends and neighbors, Vespe is terrific. As you all already know, but he really takes these questions to the most fun places. It's so great hearing about his history with reading King, his thoughts on the King film adaptations, as well as the best and brightest details from the deep well of his constant reader knowledge. And it's all wrapped up in the most hilarious package. Good listening people, there are some rapid-fire spoilers ahead for a few of the larger, more mainstream King novels, so please tread carefully if you are a newer/new-ish reader of Stephen King, because while seated on this constant reader throne, Mr. Vespe and I assume you've read Revival, The Stand, The Green Mile, It, Under the Dome, and the Dark Tower novels 1 through 5. There are probably a few more spoilers I'm forgetting about, but overall it's recommended that one is a seasoned King reader in order to fully enjoy this interview. But brave daredevils, you're also welcome to stay and hang out with us. I ain't turning you away. Alright, let's judo chop this intro and keep it short so we can get to the Vespe. Sweet people, please enjoy this hilarious and charming constant reader interview with Eric Vespe from the Kingcast. All right, ladies and gentlemen, it is a happy day. Our constant reader guest of honor is none other than Mr. Eric Vespe. Hello, Eric. Welcome to the Year of Underrated Stephen King.
Hello, Kim. I'm so happy to be here.
I am bursting. I am so excited to have you. It's been a real dream to talk to you for a long time, so this is a good day.
Should we pull the curtain back and say that we've already recorded a little something for the Kingcast, you and the Kingcast? So
we can. I definitely got a VIP privilege.
Yeah, we got to talk a little bit about a book that neither one of us loved very much, but it was fun to talk about a Stephen King thing. That's how I first met Kim, and I'm happy to come on and do whatever I can, lend my dumbass voice to to her show. She was so gracious to come on to mine. So
It was a total pleasure. Although we did go into some hot topics, it was really fun.
you got to see me go on my political soapbox a little bit, which I don't do often on the show. Like, despite what the 1-star reviews on iTunes might say every time we'd go into our fuck Donald Trump. Sorry, I didn't ask if we could curse on this.
No, go for it.
But fuck Donald Trump, soapboxes from time to time. But it's very rare that it happens. But we were hitting some pretty hot button issues on our. We can say we were talking about his latest book, Never Flinch, and that covers some pretty problematic areas, I would say, with some of the characters, and some pretty like deep-seated political things. And so and maybe I spend a little bit still too much time on social media, and so a lot of that was bubbling up, but I don't engage in social media. So I was saying all the stuff that I wanted to maybe hate post on socials, and I didn't. So we'll see if the show gets canceled. And let me say another thing about MAGA folks.
Oh my gosh, what I loved so much is that Bresnikin was good cop and Vespe was bad cop, and I am stuck. And I loved both points, but I was leaning towards Vespe's bad cop side, which I was also struggling with. I was like, okay, you got to be balanced, you got to be neutral, but I'm like, go Vespe, rage.
Well, I mean, and what's funny is that used to be me, and I talk about it on the episode that we record, where like going through COVID kind of hardened my heart a little bit. And I used to be the like, no matter how bad people have acted, they always deserve a second chance. They always give them a shot. And I'm just like, I don't know, maybe I've just lost faith in humanity. And it's like, it's not that I'm sitting here wanting violence and destruction, but I was also, we were talking about like, hey, maybe the Luigis of the world scaring the shit out of the people with all the money isn't necessarily an entirely bad thing. And poor Bresnikin was just like, let's not go down that road.
It was amazing. And I think more people will identify with you, Vespe. I do. Over the years, what we've had to endure, I believe it's hard to be pleasant when you're angry all the time.
Yep. It's I mean, it does. It eats away at you. It's, I think, one of the only like silver linings to Musk taking over Twitter, and me, like, it's kind of breaking my habit on Twitter a little bit. I still have it and I still check it, but like it's more to check my responses and stuff, and if I just want to like doom scroll, I'll go to BlueSky or something, which is a little I mean, and honestly, the only difference between the two, and I know this has fuck all to do with Stephen King, and I apologize, but the only difference between the two is that, like, since all the blue checks now get the priority in all conversation, and the only people buying blue checks are literal Nazis, the difference is, like, if I want to see somebody say something stupid on BlueSky, I can still click on it and then see them just get torn apart by everybody going, you idiot. You're saying you're posting a meme that's an AI image that isn't even true, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
If I want to do that on Twitter, I have to go through like 8 years of scrolling past people that buy the bullshit meme or agree with the white genocide argument or whatever, and before I can get to the people that'll actually say things. And that's not good for my mental health either, because I know that, I guess there was a statistic recently that was saying that like more than half of all like social media posts are confirmed bots now.
Wow.
And I don't know, maybe I'm being one of those people who read a headline and is just repeating shit as if it was fact, and that's not true. But I'm kind of hoping it is, because it does kind of erode your faith in humanity a little bit when you just see somebody go, white people are better than all other ethnicities and every other one should get out of my country. And then you see 400 responses below it going, preach, this is exactly how I feel. I used to feel like being progressive was one of those things with the gerrymandering and with kind of the laziness of progressives to get out and vote. Like, I was always at least secure in the fact that I'm like, not only am I on the right side of history, traditionally, the progressive movement, whether they were called Republicans or Democrats, which that's changed over the years, but progressivism, Lincoln was a progressive, right? He was the Democrat Party was the conservative party back then, right? So at least progressives have traditionally been on the right side of history. And I was always kind of secure in the fact that like, and I think we have the numbers too. Like I'm like, there's more of us than there are of them. But then you go onto those things, and I'm like, I'm not so sure anymore.
Yeah.
So again, this has nothing to do with your Stephen King stuff, but this is the kind of shenanigans and the heated things that were being brought up whenever you came on and recorded that episode, which is coming to the Patreon in the very near future over at the Kingcast. So if you like it and want to hear it, sign up for the Patreon at patreon.com/thekingcast. Little plug.
Oh my God, it was so much fun. We will do more plugs later. I'm so excited to hear about your 2025 and all the things. But Mr. Vespe,
Yes.
to start us off on this inside the actor studio James Lipton moment thing, similar to the origin story, but different. Specifically, how old were you when you read your very first King title? Which King title was it?
I know what King title it was, and I know what grade it was. It was 6th grade, so that
Aww.
must have been 10, I think. 10 or 11, I think, is 6th grade. And I will preface this by saying that I was a movie kid predominantly. So I read a little bit, but it was like I read comic books. I read scary stories to tell in the dark and, that kind of stuff. I'd read the Alfred Hitchcock books. I'd read lots of movie making books. Like there was a great ILM book I remember that came out around this time that was like all the behind the scenes of Star Wars and how they did it. So that's the kind of stuff I'd read. But I was a movie kid and I'd watch a lot of horror movies. And so I knew Stephen King before I picked up a book. My mom had the books around the house. I remember the hardcover of the original release. It was like a book club edition. So it was like one of the smaller ones of The Stand. So, and I remember looking at that cover. I remember the Misery cover very well as I was growing up. But the first one that I bought, or I don't think I bought it. It must have been on Mom's shelf, but she had a paperback copy of Cujo. Also remember, this is before the internet. This is back in, we're talking the Stranger Things era where if you were bored, you just rode around your neighborhood on your bike until dark and you check in maybe once during the day and that's all you needed to do. Reading was actually a really good escape for me. And I was looking at that book and I'm like, well, that's an adult book, but I'm like, I've also seen the movie. So I know how the movie is. So I know in my mind, I was like going, okay, so I know who the characters are when they're speaking. I guess I was nervous that I wouldn't be able to picture it in my mind's eye or something. But the cover I'll always remember is it was a tan cover with the snout of Cujo with the snarling like saliva, rabies, drool coming off of it. And so I'm like, I'm going to read this. And I remember it was during school because I used to take it and sneak it so I could read it during recess. And I was so sure that it was going to get confiscated that I was like, I don't know where to hide this. I wanted easy access to it so the backpack wouldn't work. And I remember going, my pencil box is exactly paperback size. So I took all the pencils out of the pencil box and I put Cujo inside. And so that's how I can nail it to the year I was in for the school year, because I was like, I remember the classroom very vividly, and that was the first one I read, and I must have liked it because I kind of made a pact with myself that I'm like, you know what, I'm going to read everything Stephen King has written, and so I made that my mission. So all through junior high and high school, like I would just I'd finish a King book and I'd go to the library and check out a new one, and I got through a good chunk of his collection before I was an adult in the adult world. So, yeah.
Cujo in a pencil box. I love this.
Yep.
It's so vivid and sweet, and I love this so much. My second question is asking, are you a constant reader who has read it all? Or are there a couple titles that are still on the list for someday?
I haven't read everything. I've read almost everything, though. It's easier for me to list off what I haven't read than it is to list off what I have, because I've read pretty much everything. And I'm going to caveat this by saying I'm sure that there's like short stories that were published once in a titty magazine that never made it into one of the collections or something that I might have missed. But I have not read Sleeping Beauties. That's a fairly recent one. And it's not like I don't want to read it. I just, when I got it, and then like I bought it when it came out, like I had it shipped Amazon first day or whatever of release, and I had it at my doorstep, and I just couldn't get to it. And then by the time I could, I had heard a lot of people talk about how hard it was to get through that one, and I kind of let them talk me out of it. And when I started the Kingcast, I was like, at a certain point, like somebody's going to pick it as a title and I'll be forced to read it there, but nobody ever has. So I have not read Sleeping Beauties. I have not read his baseball nonfiction book, Faithful, I think is what it's called, that he co-wrote with Stuart Onan. And I'm sure it's going to be great, but reading anything about baseball to me is just like watching paint dry. Like I am not a baseball fan in the slightest. I grew up in the Bay Area during the heyday of Jose Canseco and the A's, and I remember being caught up in that and going to watch the A's play, and Jose Canseco struck out at his time at bat, and I was like, oh. And this is a guy that was just known for hitting home runs. I'm like, that's the exciting thing. And I remember sitting there like hot in uncomfortable seats. And I'm like, this game lasts forever and nothing fucking happens. Nothing ever happens. So baseball, not for me. So that one I kind of put off and I'm like, it's not really my jam. I'm sure I'll get to it eventually. And then the third book that I have not read is the final of the Gwendy's Button books, which it strikes me looking at it now, the only Stephen King stuff I haven't read are the ones the thing they have in common is that he co-wrote them with somebody else. That wasn't intentional. I've read a lot of books that he co-wrote with other people that I love, but those are the three when I kind of look at the bibliography. Those are the three that I haven't gotten to yet. Some people, like Scott, who I started the Kingcast with, he had a collection of King that he was saying that he was putting off for the day that there were no more Stephen King books. And knowing Scott, and I don't know if he ever admitted it to me, but I'm pretty sure the real reason is just because he wasn't interested and didn't give a shit about it and didn't want to read them. And then when, he became half of the face of a Stephen King podcast, his way of going, well, no, there's going to be a day when there's no new Stephen King and I'm going to build up a little pile. It's like, no, he just didn't give a shit about the Mercedes trilogy. There was stuff there that I think he didn't care about. So that's not me though. Like I think I'll eventually get to the three just because I'm a completionist.
Yeah, you're like 99.5%.
I need to get that 100% trophy, right? I need to get the Xbox achievement.
You're right there. You're right there.
Know.
I would pretty much say you've read it all.
Almost. And I'll say that one of the great things about running a Stephen King show, and I'm sure you've noticed this, is that it forces you to revisit a lot of King that you might have had maybe not had a great reaction to the first time, and then maybe revisit it and you soften on it. That happened to me with Lisi's story. That was really tough for me to get into when it came out. But I really you just kind of, you have to get through all the baby talk gobbledygook that he puts in it. And once you can do that, like there is a really great, intense story there and a really imaginative one, and it plays to a lot of King's strengths. So I'm thankful for the show because it caused me to revisit a bunch of stuff. Sometimes that cuts the other way though, because I grew up loving The Talisman, and when I revisited it didn't hold up very well for me, and I don't know if I was just in a cranky mood while I was going back to it, but some of the writing like really didn't work for me on that second, or not second, I think at that point it must have been third or fourth. But the most recent read through on that one. But I love having an excuse to double down on books, especially if it's one that I probably wouldn't go to and give a second shot to anyway.
I'm so thrilled. You are psychically leading into the next question, which is awesome. Taking a look at what you've had to read for the Kingcast and repeat reads in general, in your experience, is there a King title you've noticed everybody loves, but Eric Vespe does not love? And vice versa, do you have one where you notice not a lot of readers love a title?
I am not the biggest fan of Christine. And that's like a beloved book. I'm also not a huge fan of John Carpenter's movie. I like it. But I think given John Carpenter at that time, we're talking The Thing era, Big Trouble in Little China era, right? This is John Carpenter at the height of his powers, adapting my favorite author. And for me to just go, yeah, and it's fine. It looks good. It's a real movie. It's got a cool score, and Christine looks great. And I like Keith Gordon in it a lot. I like everything about it, but I'm just fine with it. It's a movie, but with all those ingredients, it should be my favorite thing that's ever existed, right? So Christine comes close. I have a kind of a hot take in that I don't think Salem's Lot is the best written King book. I think he's still finding his feet dramatically, and I think the melodrama in it reads pretty poorly now when you go back and revisit it. But that said, like the imagery in it and the character work is prime King. So I wouldn't say that Salem's Lot's a bad book, but I don't love it as much as most people do, and the same goes with Christine. of the stuff that most people don't like that I like, I think I fall pretty well in line with a lot of King readers, but Insomnia is one that I like more than most people tend to like, and I don't know why that is, but there's something about this old dude that can't sleep, and he starts getting young, and he starts hallucinating or not hallucinating, but he starts seeing through the veil and seeing like these little bald doctors straight out of like mythology going around snipping threads of life from people. It's weird as fuck, but there's something about it that like really intrigues me, and it also sets up the Dark Tower stuff in a way that I really appreciate. And I think that honestly, the Crimson King, as represented in Insomnia, is so much better than what he is when he actually shows up in the Dark Tower. So he's such a really interesting threat there. So I mean, those two jump out to me. The one that I always champion, and I wouldn't say that this is not beloved now, but it's still underappreciated, I think, and that is Revival. And so Revival is like it's probably top 5 King for me, and
Me too.
I don't think it gets the love, and that was one thing that when Scott and I started the show, like nobody was talking about Revival, and I think maybe Scott hadn't read it when we started, and I think I mentioned we had somebody on at some point, and I was like, oh, I love Revival, and nobody ever talks about it, and we started talking about the ending of Revival, which is such a great existential horror ending and one of the best King endings. And Scott's like, okay, I have to read this, and I remember, yeah, I'm pretty sure this is true because I remember him going, yeah, I just got done. You weren't fucking around with that one. you weren't wrong on this account. And he and I both loved it so much that that it becomes a common refrain on the show of getting people. When we had Tom Hiddleston on for When the Life of Chuck was doing the press rounds, and he was asking for recommendations at the end, and I wouldn't say it's a good entry point for King readers. Like, I wouldn't say that would be the first one people should read, but I love recommending Revival to people, especially people who kind of get snarky and talk about how King flops his endings a lot. It's a really good one. It's a slow burn, but it's really solid character stuff, and when the horror hits, it's really under your skin kind of stuff. So I think Revival's underappreciated, but I think those that know it love it. So I don't know if that would count as like being it's more of an underdog than the one that's like just shit on all the time, you know what I mean?
Oh, stellar list. I love all your choices, and this is a real full circle moment because Revival is also a top 5 King for me as well.
Oh, great.
I kind of wanted to extend my gratitude to you and Scott for championing it, because I know so many constant readers who read Revival because of the Kingcast. And I am just so grateful because it is such an incredible novel. And I'm just so thrilled that you guys championed it because it's amazing.
Well, listen, King's so prolific. There's so much stuff. It's not easy to, and so many people kind of fell off on his work because he had a really rough patch, like around the time of the accident, and it was a little rocky getting there, to be honest. Like I kind of look back pretty fondly on those women in peril books that he was writing in the 90s. The Gerald's Game, of course, I think is held up very well, but he also had Rose Madder. Insomnia is another one, which isn't so much woman in peril, but it's in that same vein where abortion's like the main topic of conversation in that thing. Like he there was this period of time leading up to the accident where he was like putting out interesting things, but not like the bangers that he was putting out through all the 70s and 80s, right?
Right.
And then he hits this really rough patch post-accident where it takes him good 6 or 7 years to kind of find his footing again. And then he comes back with 11/22/63, and he's hit and missed since then. But like for me personally, that to me signaled like, okay, he's back at his full power. And I don't know, he put out at least 5 or 6 books since then that I think are better than 99% of the best books of all the other authors that are out there. So
I agree with you there.
Including Revival.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited for how you're just magically leading into the questions, and I don't think it's intentional. It's just kismet. You brought up Insomnia, which I have not read yet. I have a little bit of a pothole with 90s King, but you mentioned the Crimson King.
Yeah.
And most recently, I just finished, so I have to preface with this.
Okay.
I have just finished Song of Susannah for the first time.
Okay.
I have not yet finished The Tower.
Great. I won't spoil it.
My brain is currently scrambled egg post Song of Susannah.
Mm-hmm.
I'm having to read it again. I'm struggling so much, Eric. It is a lot.
Song is real tough to get through. I love the Dark Tower, warts and all, but man, I remember I struggled with Song of Susannah, and it's like one of the shortest books, and especially in the back half of that series. But all it is just he just lays into like the existentialism and the multiple realities, and so many things are plates are spinning because he's setting up that final book, that it just feels more of an interstitial book than it does its own unique story, which is one of the things I love about the Dark Tower. And that's, every book up until then had been its own genre of story, and then this one just feels like, okay, now this is the plot book to get things moving forward to the end, right? So
Oh, that's so comforting to hear. It's so
yeah.
nice to verbalize that with somebody, because I'm just struggling. And I love a hard book. I love a challenging king text, because that's the English teacher student in me, where I'm like, all right, let's get this. Let's dig in and get it. But Song of Susannah has melted me. So it's really nice to hear that what I'm feeling is valid. So this question is just a big old catch-all raw reaction question asking about what you think about the Dark Tower.
I'm obsessed with it, and I have been. I'd said that I read King starting in sixth grade, and then I would pick stuff up. And I believe I was in middle school. I might have been a freshman in high school. The legend I've been telling is middle school for a long time, but I think I might have been a freshman when I picked this up. But I remember talking to a coach. I had one of those that was like a coach that also taught English or something, right? And I remember his name is Coach Kelly. He was a dude. He kind of, in my mind, looks a little bit like Elias Koteas in the 90s, but like a dude, like just a random guy version of that guy. Kind of balding, but he's got the curly hair, white dude, but with the curly hair. And I think he saw me reading Stephen King, and he's like, oh, you should read the Dark Tower books. And at this point, only 3 of them had been out. And I remember they were all 3 in the school library. So I checked them out of the school library, and I was like, I don't know. I remember I'd seen them before, but I'm like, cowboys, I don't care about this stuff. And I think I was flipping through, and these were the Plume paperback ones that had all the Michael Whalen illustrations in the first one. And I was flipping through, and I got to the image of Roland shooting the gun at a slow mutant and pulling Jake with his other hand. And I'm like, okay, there's monsters in this. I think I'm going to like this. And so I checked it out, and I kind of became obsessed with it. I'd never read anything like it. And I hurriedly got through Gunslinger, Drawing of the Three, and then Wastelands. And with every book, I loved it more and more and more. And then you get to the end of the Wastelands, it's a cliffhanger. And I think, when did Wizard and Glass come out? It was like 97.
Yep.
And that must have been a 5 or 6 year wait for me. So when I say it ends on a cliffhanger, it's not just like, and then they have a rest and who knows what's over the hill. It's like literally they're on a murder-suicide train that's sentient and has decided that the only way that it will not just derail and murder our beloved quartet is if it can be bested in a riddle contest. And then you're like, oh my God, this is going to be great. And you turn the page, and just as they're about to start the contest, bam, coming in for the next book. And I'm like, you motherfucker. So I was on the hook for that for a long, long time. I mean, as we're talking, I'm looking at a print of Michael Whalen's that I have in a prestigious place on the wall of, this is the image of Roland on the beach from the end of The Gunslinger. And it's a big print, and long before I started the show, I had the chance to interview Stephen King at New York Comic Con for Ain't It Cool News, which is a website that I wrote for many, 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 many years. And the opportunity to interview King came up, and I took it, and I brought this poster with me. And so he actually signed it to me, and he signed it to Eric, Long Days and Pleasant Nights, Stephen King. It's the only, I've been privileged enough to have him on the show a couple of times, and been privileged even more to be able to interact with him, off show. And it's great, but that's the only time I've ever met him in person. And he was, it turns out, like, I follow a Stephen King collector forum on Facebook. Turns out he doesn't sign things that aren't books a lot. Like he refuses to sign like still images of himself and that stuff. So apparently when I joined the group, I'm like, here's the, they're all like, I have this signed limited edition. I have this book from 1978 that's worth $30,000, and I have this. And so they encourage you to share your collection. I'm like, well, I got this first edition, and then I got this thing that he signed, and everybody's like, oh my God, like he never signs that kind of stuff. That's so impressive. So if you want to know how big of a Dark Tower nerd I am, that's the second I got that signed, I got it professionally framed, and it's been hanging up ever since.
Aside from loved ones and pets, of course, is that what you're saving from a fire?
It's up there. It's gonna be that. It's probably saving the show, so I'd run out with like all my hard drives and my and my computer, and I also, the other claim to fame that I have, the priceless, irreplaceable artifact, is I am the proud owner of the amulet from the Monster Squad. So the actual screen used one. So I'd probably grab that because that's easy to just throw into a pocket. So everything else is replaceable. All my posters, all my pop culture posters, my physical media, books, all that stuff. It's replaceable, but those two would not be.
What a treasure. That's a real treasure, Eric. Oh my gosh.
I appreciate it every day. It doesn't go to waste.
I'm so happy you have it. Passionate conservators deserve these treasures. They do.
I agree.
All right, buddy. I want to jump to a fun one and ask about your favorite Stephen King villains.
This is a loaded one because King does a lot of things very well, and painting villains, fleshing them out, is one of the top things he does. There's lots of good contenders here. I think the obvious answer is Randall Flagg. That's the one that's like, he gets to be as Loki. It's a very fun villain. He gets to span different things from Eyes of the Dragon to Dark Tower to The Stand and more. I love that before the Dark Tower was really explored, that Randall Flagg was kind of the linchpin of the multiverse of King, right? I love it, but it's also, when I was kind of thinking about this and what I love about a good Stephen King villain, kind of have a weird off-the-shelf thing that hit me, and I think that it's maybe recency bias because I just did a screening with Stephen Graham Jones here in Austin of Silver Bullet, and I revisited Cycle of the Werewolf, and I kind of love what he does with Reverend Lowe in that one, who's the main werewolf guy. And it's mostly because you never see a werewolf that actually, where the human is usually the woe is me, I don't want to hurt anybody. And what I love about Reverend Lowe is he's trying to excuse his werewolf behavior, right? He's like, I'm actually doing good. I'm saving these people's souls. This lady was going to commit suicide, killing the unborn child in her belly. That was a mortal sin. I saved her soul. And then in the same breath, he like admits to getting a thrill out of killing. And as he's threatening to murder a fucking child in a wheelchair because he knows his secret, right? There's something about that I think is so complex and so interesting that it really stuck out to me. But I also wouldn't say the Reverend from Cycle of the Werewolf, which is basically a calendar in a novella form, right? It's like, is the best one. But I'll tell you one that I don't think gets a lot of love, and as well he shouldn't. He's a despicable son of a bitch. But in terms of just pure, unadulterated hatred for a character, I don't think you can get any worse than Percy Wetmore from The Green Mile. That's one that, like, Margaret White is such a great villain, Cujo, like, I love the sadness of Cujo because he's technically the antagonist, but I wouldn't call him a villain, especially the bits where you get in the novel inside of his head and all he wants to do is be a good boy, and he like stops himself from attacking his kid owner and all that stuff. The last little bit of it, it's like he can't help himself. That's not the same thing as a villain. But when you look at somebody like Percy, and King writes bullies so well, and when you have Percy, who, if you aren't familiar with The Green Mile, is I wouldn't even say he's the main antagonist of the story. I mean, I think Wild Bill is probably more the direct evil guy in that, but Percy is so he's just that slimy shithead bully that does all the wrong. I mean, I say that, but I don't think Wild Bill. Well, shit, I don't know. I was gonna say I don't think he does anything as bad as what Percy does, but he rapes and murders two little girls. So yes, of course he does. But what's the title of the bad death of Edouard Delacroix?
You got it. Bingo.
What he does to Del is unconscionable, and the way he abuses power. There's a million King villains that can do that. I can point to Greg Stilson and what he would have done in Dead Zone and all that stuff. But I don't know. We've all known Percy Wetmore. We've all seen that guy who, through connections, through just blind luck, through whatever, can do the worst shit and never get any repercussions of it. And these slimy bullies who cower in a real fight, but just through their position, there's nothing you can do about them, and you just have to watch them revel in their cruelty. I think Percy is like legitimately the one where it's tough for me to revisit the Green Mile because I hate that character so much.
Yeah.
As intended. And I hate him so much, and it's just an uncomfortable read for me. Even knowing that he gets his comeuppance, and even knowing that he doesn't get to skate by all of his life with what he does in that moment. But I don't know, just somebody that would do something to people that are helpless in those situations and twist the knife, when he needs to. And as problematic as the actor that portrayed him is in The Green Mile, they cast the perfect dude, and Darabont cast the perfect dude to play him in the movies. That's the one that I think is probably the best, like, villain. But you asked a very simple question, and I gave you like 8 different answers to it, so I apologize to that.
No apologies needed, buddy. That was amazing. I adored every syllable of that, and I love a deep cut. I think that those are both really sexy deep cuts. I hate Percy. He's so awful. I block him out. Like, it's such irredeemable evil. It's one of those where, like, this dog needs to be put down today. You cannot convert O2 to CO2. I hate you so much.
Death sentence for you.
Yes, death and nothing less.
Yeah, there's nothing that you could do. You could become a monk for 30 years and do nothing but help the poor, and you still don't make up for the shit that you did.
100%. Great choices. Super good. I've never heard them on the show before, Eric. So
good.
10 out of 10.
Well, I had to bring in the fire. Like I said, Randall Flagg is a little too easy because he's just he came to represent the like iconic King villain, right? Just the fact that he's so, even with the extended version of The Stand, it's like he doesn't even get blown up in the full story version, and he shows up to start anew on a deserted island and get a new flock of followers, right? I think part of it's also what King does with Randall Flagg, as you'll see in the next Dark Tower book, where you kind of feel like he's being built up to do something and he's not. So I don't want to spoil too much for you, but
okay.
I think he does undercut Randall Flagg a little bit in the myth of Randall Flagg by the time he gets to play his part in the Dark Tower.
Good to know. I'm a Flagg girly. I love him. I really do. I really am horrified at that, though, because I feel like I'm one of those girls that writes to serial killers in prison. I don't want to be that.
You're going to go hang out in Spawn Ranch?
No. But, right, I don't want to be in the Manson gang, but I feel like I would because Flagg is so enjoyable to me on the page. Because, like you said, I think Loki's a perfect description for what he is. Consistently changing his face throughout time, consistently positioning the chess pieces to obtain power. It's great. It's a sexy villain, and I think I like that.
I also like that he is so powerful that he's always brought down by his own hubris, right? It's every single time that he pops up, he has the cock of the walk, but he also is so dependent on people believing that he's the strong man that when that belief isn't there, he crumbles. And there's just something, I don't know, in this day and age, especially, not to go on another rant, a political rant, but in this day and age of seeing these just unending support for terrible people, it's like the fact that once you kind of realize that if that support's not there, that person that's causing so much pain and destruction for you and your friends and all that stuff, like, would literally just crumble and not be anything. Like, there's something nice about that. Whether that's true in reality, I don't know. But I do love that about Randall Flagg, that is charismatic and all powerful as he seems to be, he can crumble the second anybody really stands up to him, right? And I like that.
Yeah, the balloon deflation is very real with Flagg. And I think that's probably why I enjoy him, because I'm not afraid of him because of what you mentioned. Because there is that destroy button that he has.
He might take you out. A lot of people that stand up to him end up dead, but you know what I mean? He might take you out, but it would be a sacrifice that would actually like help end the regime, if you know what I mean.
Yes, and the stand is never wasted against Flagg.
For sure.
We are going into a question. It's kind of got some multiple parts here, but we'll start with the first part, which is talking about a King character who you would like to have a prequel or sequel very similar to Danny from The Shining. He has Dr. Sleep. We also have Holly Gibney, but she's a little different. She just has a slew of her own books.
Right.
Is there anybody in the King universe who you would like to have that star spotlight treatment of more content?
King characters that I love, I'm happy to see pop up in any context. I mentioned 11/22/63 before. One of my favorite chapters in there is when the main character stumbles across the loser club. It's sometime after they defeated it for the first time when they were kids. The way it slips in, where it's just like, and there's Richie and Bevy from the Levee and Richie from the Ditchy and some like he just the fact that, and it's not even the entire gang, it's just a few of them, but they're just kind of hanging out in the Barrens, and I smiled so big when that happened. Do I think that there's a story to be told? No, not really, because the story that's told with it is told generationally, and you get the ending of their story. Do I want to see the 70-year-old survivors? Not as much, but I think that could be interesting. If King wanted to do it, I'd certainly be there. But the thing that kind of jumps out to me, and this is Randall Flagg adjacent, is I always thought that the only real hanging thread that jumps to mind in terms of a Stephen King story is the end of Eyes of the Dragon.
Nice.
Where, again, if you're not familiar with that one, King's fairy tale version of a Game of Thrones story, almost. So you had like King that was murdered by Randall Flagg in disguise, and he's the court wizard in this Midworld adjacent, I think. I don't know. It's unclear. It's like, I know that they cross over into Midworld at some point. I don't know if they're actually in Midworld in Eyes of the Dragon, but they have like these two brothers that are left. One of them is framed. The good one is framed for the murder of his father, and he's imprisoned in a tower. And the story is a pretty basic fairy tale story of boy escapes, fights the evil wizard, and happiness comes back into the kingdom, right? But what's really great about that book is that Flagg is grooming that whole time. He's grooming the younger brother. And so the brothers are Peter and Thomas. Thomas is the younger one, I think, if I remember correctly. He's grooming the younger one to essentially, he turns him into kind of a Joffrey, right? He's like this little shit. He's dealing with a lot of emotions. He's always been the shittier brother. He's always had resentment about that, and Flagg feeds that. And the great thing about this, though, is that this is like if Joffrey got a redemption arc, and he helps stand up to it. He sides with his brother. He tries to redeem himself. They essentially banish Flagg. Flagg runs off into the night, and it's kind of left off with this thought that Peter and Thomas were going to hunt Flagg down and make him pay for the crimes that he committed. And this is also cross-referenced in Dark Tower, where Roland makes a mention at a certain point of running into Peter and Thomas on his adventures. And I fucking love the idea of this guy who was essentially the most evil king. He is despised by the people, right? This poor kid, he was like, he was 13 or 14 or something when he had to take the throne. He was manipulated by an evil wizard, but he taxed the hell out of the populace. People were dying. He was cruel. Everybody hates him. And it doesn't all go away whenever Peter is freed and regains the throne. There's nothing that Peter can say. He can't say, hey, my brother's cool now, and the people go, that's sweet. So I love this concept of this guy that is hated by his kingdom, out and kind of roguish, trying to make amends. And I've made a point where, like, I look at this and I go, this is what J.J. Abrams should have done with Star Wars. Once that kind of entered my mind, I'm like, I can't not see this. It's like, as much as I love seeing, I'm not a big fan, like most people, of Rise of Skywalker and what they do with the movie. I can say I loved seeing Adam Driver get to show a little bit of the Han Solo swagger, and Ben Solo getting a little bit of the character. I still think the interesting ending there is Rey gives her life to save him and redeem him, and he's left with being Space Hitler. Right? Everybody knows who this guy is and hates his guts, but he's good now and he's trying to make amends. What does that character do?
Ooh.
Like, that is so much more interesting than him just sacrificing himself for Rey because he gets a kiss or whatever the fuck happens in that movie. To me, that's so much more of an interesting story. And so, like, since they didn't do it in Star Wars, I'm hoping someday King might pick up that thread. I don't know. I know he's playing footsie with Midworld again with the new talisman, but I'm hoping he gets the itch to maybe tie up some of these threads and have that. But, like, if I could ask King to write one story, it's like, what happens when Peter and Thomas go out in that kingdom and hunt Flagg down? Like, what are they stopping? Who are they saving? Who are they too late to save? How close do they get to getting another confrontation with the Man in Black? That would be my answer. I think that's the one that I feel like there's actual room for a new sequel.
Dude.
Yeah.
Oh my God, Eric, I am dying over here. Oh, I got no words, and that's a rare thing. I love that so much. That is so huge. I've never heard that, but you're right. It's perfect. Oh my God, it's perfect.
Even if it's just a short story. You give us a short story, and I love that King will do that. Like, I'm actually, one of my favorite things King does, and he's starting to do it again a little bit. He did it a lot early, and he never really did it again until recently, where, like, after he did Salem's Lot, the next story collection after that was, or I guess it was the first one, was Night Shift. And he has two Salem's Lot stories in there. He has a prequel and a sequel. And I loved those little check-ins, like what's up with that town and the surrounding areas of the town after it burns down at the end, and where did all the vampires come from in the first place? He gets to play with that, and then recently he had that sequel to Cujo that shows up in You Like It Darker. You follow the, what's his name, Tad's dad. Even though it's not about a rabid dog or anything, he does get to check in with a character that he wrote about once 40 years ago, and I don't know. I love it when he does that. So I would love to see, like, what the hell Peter and Thomas were up to in that period of time.
Oh, such a great idea. I love that so much. That's going to feed me for many moons. I will be thinking about that one. So good. So the second part to this question is asking writers and creatives about one of the biggest Stephen King character mysteries ever. Right. And that is the fate of Charlie McGee. At the end of Firestarter, she's 9 years old when she walks into Rolling Stone. The novel ends. We never see her again.
Right.
And so this question is asking, if King blessed a sequel, whether it was an 8-episode limited series, a feature film, a novel, a short story, where would you take the character of Charlie?
It's interesting because the inference at the end is that she is even more powerful than the shop thought she would have been.
Right.
And she has more control over it than she should have at 9 years old. So I think, you could literally make her an X-Men if you wanted to. I think she's powerful enough to do that. But I don't think she wants that. One of the things that's always kind of stood out to me, before King would really write sequels, he would get asked a lot about if there's any sequel ideas in his mind. And one thing that I don't know if he jokingly said it or if it was something he was seriously kicking around, but he said that he thought it would be interesting if Charlie McGee and Danny Torrance met up. And what would that be like? And he's like, and I think he jokes like, and then they get married, and what are their kids going to be like? I wouldn't go that far, but it makes me curious because especially the way Dr. Sleep ends in the book, it isn't like the movie, Danny survives. So honestly, that instinct would probably be the first thing that I would explore if I was looking at it, is mid-40s Charlie McGee. She runs into Danny Torrance after the events of Dr. Sleep. Is there room in that for a crossover? I think that them being drawn to each other would make sense within that world, especially if Abra's around. And what does that mean? I don't know what a storyline could be around there that would be in any way fulfilling, other than I've never really been a huge fan of the shop, and I think that I'm so happy that King played around with it for a couple of books and then left it in the dust. As much as I love Stranger Things, but the secretive government organization where they're teaching 10-year-olds to crush cans with their minds and shit is not, to me, it's not my favorite of the King tropes. And so maybe, I don't know, maybe you can tie it into the Institute and have these like psychic kids that are rebelling at the end of that book and, rebelling and kind of blowing up their own institutes. And ultimately these kids are going to, if they're strong enough to do that, they're going to be going out. Maybe the way it is you'd have to have Danny and Abra and Charlie together, like creating their own little X mansion, I don't know, making a home for wayward psychic TK kids. I don't know.
I've always wanted Abra and Charlie to be together in some way. I don't know why. I think just there were so many character parallels, I guess, with such a powerful young lady.
Right.
I'm with you. Oh, I love that. A little Professor Xavier for gifted youngsters. Yeah. That's so good.
Yeah, even if Danny isn't like involved in any other way other than hooking those two up, I do like that, especially if you're going to kind of look at, because the Institute's like pretty directly tied into the shop and what they were doing with the MK Ultra stuff. And, which again, is the most blatant lifts I think that the Duffers did for Stranger Things, is stealing that concept. But yeah, there's something about it, especially the most intriguing. I like the Institute okay, but I think the finale is the interesting thing to me, where it's kind of revealed that there were all these. You saw the rebellion in one institute, and then you find out that there were dozens more, and they were all kind of psychically connected by that one super powerful kid, and they were all rebelling at once. And now that they're connected, what happens to them now? I mean, all these kids that are brought in, their families are killed, and so I don't know. Yeah, Abra and Charlie set up an orphanage for psychic kids. That's my answer.
Love it. It's so good. And it worked. I love how you just go for the extra credit bonus level where you're like, this novel, this novel, this novel. It's so cool.
This is quite literally the only topic that I can sound smart in. So God damn it, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna go for the bonus points.
That's why I knew you had to be in my chair. I had to ask Eric these things. It's amazing. We are jumping to a question about Stephen King endings.
Okay.
It's mostly, over the years, I've asked constant readers, do you agree with the King can't end books thing? But the question has kind of taken on a hybrid form into talking about, has there ever been a King ending that soured the journey as a whole? Or are you someone who just has radical acceptance? And then lastly, do you have a favorite King ending where you just feel, oh man, this is the one?
Without getting into spoilers, I love how King ends The Dark Tower.
Okay.
There is some third act stuff in The Dark Tower that does not fly with me, and we can talk about that at some point after you've read it.
Okay.
That I think is a big letdown, but the actual conclusion to what's in the tower, I think, is a masterstroke. I think it's brilliant. I think that it's unexpected. I think that it could have gone a billion different ways and not been fulfilling, and it somehow strengthens everything that came before it once it is revealed what's in the tower, right? So I would hold that up pretty high. I mean, we talked about Revival. I think the ending to Revival is just an all-time banger for King, and it's one that is... You have like endings for like The Stand where there's world stakes at large here. And The Stand gets criticized a lot for having a literal hand of God coming in at the end to explode a nuke and get rid of the bad guys. But that one, as much shit as it gets, that's the identity of that book. It's biblical. It was meant to be biblical. It's meant to be a very black and white, good versus evil. The bolder people are the power of the white, and that they're there to stand up and literally stand in the face of true evil and what it can represent. And so having God show up, cop out maybe a little bit, but it fits in the text, right?
Yes.
So I don't really have a problem with that. I think King gets a lot of shit for his endings. I think that it's another one that gets a lot of shit that I don't think it deserves it. I understand where the feeling comes from with that, where people are like, I've spent this whole thing, these 1,000 pages, and it's just a fucking giant spider. Is that all we're getting? But even so, King like goes out of his way in that book, in that story, to tell you that the spider isn't actually the spider. It's like, this is just the closest that a human brain could get to. It's a cop-out. It's a little bit H.P. Lovecraft, where he's like, and then he saw something that I would describe to you, but it would drive you insane. It's pretty much that. But he goes out of his way to at least acknowledge that it's like, no, it's not just a spider, but this is the closest thing that the losers could see without their brains just snapping in half. Right. And they needed to have a physical image of it so they could destroy it. Right. So I think that he gets a lot of shit. I don't think he deserves it so much, but the way that he writes, I'm sure that you have people that are constant readers. They know his process where he doesn't outline. And I think that you can't take the good without the bad. And the good with that is the spontaneity and these twists that these stories take, that if you were outlining nobody in a million years would kill Nick Andros in the middle of The Stand if they were outlining those characters. But nobody in a million years would kill Tad at the end of Cujo. But that's just the way, as he's writing, that's how the story comes to him. And sometimes he paints himself into a corner. I think the Under the Dome is the one that when I read that, I'm just like, I don't know if I've ever read a great book that I hated the ending and it ruined the book. I think Under the Dome is a great premise that like wears thin about halfway through its large ass book, and then by the time you get to the end and it's just some fucking dumb teenage aliens or something that like don't understand that they're being bullies and doing this experiment, and it's just like ants in a glass to them or whatever. It's some outer limits bullshit that he comes up with, and it's a really terrible ending, and one that I remember getting to going, what the fuck is this? So Under the Dome is like a legitimately bad ending, I think. But you know, he's had bad endings to other books, but that haven't been great. I've never been a big fan of From a Buick 8. I like this again. I like the setup, but I don't buy in any of the characters. Scott Wampler, my the late great co-host of the Kingcast, he had a big soft spot in that book because it is fucking weird, and it's good weird, and I like the weirdness of it. But man, that's not one I just never bought the characters, and it just kind of ends.
Yeah.
Right. It just there is no real resolution to it. But that's also kind of not the point of it either. It's not like it's baked into the themes of the book. So I would call that a bad ending, but it's also one that I don't give a shit about the book going into it. So Under the Dome was the one where I enjoyed the most up to a certain point, and then that ending is just like pure like the fuck are you thinking, man?
I agree with you.
Again, I gave you 18 answers to your question. I apologize there.
That's the goal, buddy. That's the goal.
Okay, good.
We're all about more than one. I love it. I'm with you with Under the Dome. That was a hard pill to swallow. I
Right.
really wish if he would have ended that tragically, Eric. Oh my God, it would have been so hot. And everybody would love that book because I really feel the ending is the reason why it's not celebrated. It's not discussed.
Right.
It's a labor of love. The slot machine that does not pay us out. And
Right.
we are in debt when we walk away.
And sometimes you need to have that. I mean, revival isn't the hooray ending. It's legitimately, like I was saying, it's not world stakes, but it's not, well, it's not as apparently as big a world stakes, but when you like really break down the ending to revival, it's existentially terrifying. And in case people haven't read it, since that's not one of his more common ones, I don't want to break it down too much. But it's one of those endings when you get the answer of what's beyond the veil and what that means for each and every one of us, that suddenly it changes perspective. And it's just like, I don't know, it's one of those things where it's so chewy and it sticks with you. And it's sometimes when you're like, you know, you take a gummy and you're going to bed and your mind's starting to wander and you go, well, like maybe the ending of revival is true. And if so, we're all fucked. You know, It's like, there's nothing you can do about it. It's so existentially horrific and it doesn't back down. It's a real dark King ending that it doesn't feel that dark because it's not like, oh, and then the beloved character you follow dies tragically or whatever. The Frank Darabont missed ending or whatever, where it's just like, bam, that's a gut punch. It's one that you start thinking about it and you're like, this is legitimately one of the most terrifying things he's ever written. And it kind of brainworms you. You get some RFK Jr. brainworms that's in there and that you can't stop obsessing over at some point. So
I'm going to quelch my laugh attack there. Yeah, it is hauntingly bleak. And then because it punches so hard, you love it because it's just the drop off the cliff. I'm with you. It's fantastic. I probably every single day, all day, am writing on student drafts, and I'm always talking about setting, telling them, where the hell are we? Where and when are we? Because all the writers are so excited, they always forget setting. So this question is about Stephen King settings. And if we had a magic wand to go somewhere for the summer, a couple weeks, if you could get stuck in a Stephen King setting to do your work for a while or to go on holiday, where would you choose?
when you start thinking about it, there's not a lot of good options here. You know, I'm one that, and maybe everybody thinks this way, but like, until they're actually in it. But I'm also one where I'm like, I don't think it's such a bad gig that Jack Torrance had there. It's like, I don't think I don't shine at all. I think I'd be perfectly fine at the Overlook. I'm not one of those that like has those instincts and buys the right lottery ticket. And I think I'm a fucking dull spoon, you know, for the shine. So I don't think that the hotel would fuck with me at all. And the idea of I love snow. I love good scenery. I like to cook. I love the idea of giant kitchens, right? Like having a giant kitchen and huge walk-in pantry with everything I can need. And it's just, You can walk, you can do something creative or whatever. You can walk around, you can do some exercise, you can throw a ball against a wall if you get bored. But the caveat there is I also am I wouldn't want to lose internet. So if I could like have the internet and streaming, the whole point of this is that you don't have any contact with the outside world, right? So I know that that's completely betraying the whole thing that drove Jack Torrance crazy in the first place, or a contributing factor, the cabin fever aspect of it. And if you have any connection, and when you take that away from me, if as long as I can bring books, I have my family, I have my pets, and I can just bring like, I don't know, 200 movies and TV series I wanted to catch. I can preload the iPad, or you know what I mean? Like I can have all that. I think I could do okay at the Overlook. Ghost be damned, because again, they ain't getting me. There's nothing that I'm gonna do. The only times it's a problem for people in the Overlook is if they shine a little bit or a lot bit. So I think I could probably handle that. And the isolation stuff, it feels very attractive to me, and not the other way around. It's still not a great answer because you're still fucking around with ghosts in there, and just because I don't shine doesn't mean they're not going to fuck around with me somehow. I don't know, but the other options would be like Midworld, and I'm like, I wouldn't last a fucking day in Midworld, man. It's like,
No, sir.
I mean, maybe if I was in the Kala and the good, not the Kala, if I was in Magus in the good times, right? When Susan's still around and everybody's just partying and we're all doing fall celebrations, I'd hang out at the fucking bar and become friends with Shimi. Like I could probably like that would be fun, but if I could cherry pick when in the timeline before the young gunslingers show up and everything goes to hell and I feel sad about everything, then that might be an option. But man, like I also love I have to be honest with myself. If the temperature is above 72 degrees, I'm uncomfortable.
I got you.
And I can't sleep, so I need my air conditioning. I'm a creature of comfort, so I'm not really surviving any of these mid-world shenanigans. I'm sorry. So.
I love your answers, though. I think the support for the Overlook is tremendous because there's so many great things.
There's so many upsides.
So many upsides. I would have to probably bring along some beta blockers just in case. Like, did I see that? No, I didn't. Down the hatch with a couple of antipsychotics. We're fine.
Bring some good wasp killing, non-expired pesticide.
Absolutely. I think that's the most solid choice. I'm a Joyland girl, so I would always have a nice hippie summer in Joyland.
It's a pretty good option because I like theme parks. And so and I also love like coastal thing. Like I grew up in the Bay Area, so I'd go to the Santa Cruz Beach Boardwalk a lot when I was a kid. I remember it being dirty and gross even then, but goddamn did I love shooting tennis balls out of an air cannon and trying to win a little stuffed animal. It's like, if the listener doesn't know the Beach Boardwalk, it's the setting of The Lost Boys. It's the setting of the beginning of Us, Jordan Peele's Us. That's the Beach Boardwalk in Santa Cruz. So I do love that. And I also... the idea of going on that little haunted house thing and seeing a real ghost is pretty cool to me. Like, I know, I love that part of that story is that some people can see it and some people can't. And it's surprising who it is that can see it. I would be, I remember, this is a total sidetrack story here, but there was, I don't know if it was an Unsolved Mysteries, but it was a show like that came on, and it was, I remember, it must have been 9 or 10. My mom and I were watching it, and it must have been like 6 or 7 o'clock at night. And it was a story about a ghost named, and it was like one of those like documentary kind of things, right? Unsolved Mysteries type deal. And it was about a haunted Toys R Us. And it was supposedly the ghost of a young man named Yanni haunted this Toys R Us. And we're watching it, and then they reveal that the Toys R Us is like the local Toys R Us to us. It's not like the one that was right next to us, so I don't know if we'd ever been to that one. But there was a closer one. But my mom saw it and she's like, we're going to go see Yanni. We want to go see Yanni. And so we like got in the car and we drove like the 45 minutes away to the haunted Toys R Us, and we looked around and for Yanni, and we didn't find Yanni.
Oh.
But that, that kind of ghost hunting thing is very appealing to me, I would say. So I think Joyland's probably definitely a safer answer than the one I gave. But I also, again, I like technically you have a boss, but you're on your schedule. You make your own rules. You make your own hours. Like, as long as in the book, in the movie, Jack makes Wendy do all that shit. But Wendy's the actual caretaker of the Overlook, where she's the one turning down the boiler every day and going through and making sure everything's up to snuff. The only thing that Jack does is try to clean up the wasp nest, and he fucks up with that. So, he's not very good at his job, but still, I love the idea of like you have a checklist of things you do every day, and they provide you food and drinks and entertainment, and you do whatever. You just board games with your family. I don't know. I find it appealing. Joyland's a much more safe choice, though. I agree with that.
I definitely think Linda Gray would appear to you on the ride. You'd be the lucky one.
Or the unlucky one, and the people who see her don't seem to be happy about it.
That is true. It is a bit traumatic, Linda Gray, bless her. There's many, many perks to the Overlook. I think people who are at peace with their alone time would absolutely thrive.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I don't have a... I mean, I'm not social, but it's like I'm an old man now. I'm at that age where I get happy when plans are canceled. You know what I mean?
Oh,
so
yeah.
It's like, I don't know. It is appealing. And like I said, there's just not a lot to fucking choose from. It's like, I'm going to hang out in the car with Donna and Tad. It's like, no. It's like, I'm going to go, and all the rest is like, I don't know. It would be fun to be hanging out in Castle Rock.
Yeah.
When Needful Things shit's happening and watching the drama unfold. You get your own like Jerry Springer thing, and I am very curious what my Needful Thing would be, and I don't know how susceptible I'd be. I'd probably be more susceptible than I'd want to admit. It's like, oh, you're just doing a little prank on this guy who's an asshole anyway, or whatever. I don't know. I might do it. I love a deal. I love a deals.
Oh my gosh, this is such a fun question, and you made it even more fun.
Okay,
thank you, Eric.
good.
Oh my gosh. Okay, we're gonna jump now to Stephen King film.
Okay.
What are your favorite Stephen King film adaptations? It could be features or television miniseries. What are the ones that just do it for you?
One that's become a favorite, this is kind of like the revival of Answer here, where I remember before I started the show, I was like, yeah, this is fine, and I liked it enough. And then when I revisited it for the podcast, I was like, this is an all-timer, to me, a Storm of the Century. I love Storm of the Century. I think I don't know if it holds the same spot in my heart that the It miniseries does, because I was like, 9 or 10 when that came out. Perfect age for watching that. I was caught up in the hype, and part 1 aired, and then that next day, everybody at school was just talking about what's going to happen on part 2 and how cool it was. And then you'd have the kids that were pissed off that their parents wouldn't let them watch it and like all this stuff. That holds a very specific place for me. But I think Storm of the Century is kind of, some wonky prosthetic effects aside, it's there's a point where my dude looks like a Spirit Halloween mask when he's in his full wizard mode. But I love the setup to that. I love the impossible question at the center of this. Give me what I want and I'll go away. And what does he want? What sacrifice would you make? What if it was your kid that had to go in this raffle? And you know what I mean? It's like, it's just one. He just wants. Just throw a few of them, and you just have to figure out amongst you which one of these kids goes so everybody else survives. I love, again, this is an isolation story. I love being trapped on Little Tall during the storm, cut off from everything, and it's just the community that has to discuss this. I think it's definitely the most slept on of the King miniseries. Yes, for sure.
Oh, I'm with you.
Good. Yeah. For the movies, I mean, there's so many really good ones. I'll say that the one, I'll keep going with like the slept on ones. I think like pound for pound, like Stand By Me, I think is one of the best carrying tone and character over stories. This isn't the slept on one, by the way. That's the one where like so much is directly just lifted, especially character dialogue is directly lifted from the book. And it works so well in the movie, and it captures not only Rob Reiner's 50s nostalgia and childhood, it captures Stephen King's, and it feels authentic. I love those kids. I recognize those personalities. I wish I was friends with those. I wish I could give Gordy a hug and tell him everything's going to be okay. I wish I could be as cool as Chris Chambers, right? It's like, I wish that at some point I had a Chris Chambers in my life that could help me and give me those advice and be that supportive and all that. I think pound for pound, Stand By Me, Shawshank is incredible, but like in terms of getting King's character from the page to the screen, I think it's pretty impeccable. Obviously, The Shining is a masterpiece, but it's a different bird than the book, and there's a lot of peace that you have to make with the fact that it isn't a direct adaptation, or not the adaptation that a lot of people would want, right? But in terms of movies that I think that are underappreciated, I think 1408 is one that often gets forgotten, which is interesting because, this is something I learned again doing the show, was that before it came out, 1408 was, I think, the most successful Stephen King movie at the box office. It made a ton of money. It made hundreds of millions of dollars. For whatever reason, it hit, but then it also disappeared from everybody's conscious. It didn't stick for some reason. And it's so good, and it's so involving, and, this is another shining style story. But I love the whole setup of the skeptic that goes in. He's a ghost hunter. He's looking for any proof of the supernatural, and you come to find out why. There's a little actual DNA for what would become the main thrust for Revival in here, by the way, as well. It's like, this is a guy that's hunting for evidence of the supernatural, because if there is evidence of the supernatural, maybe his daughter, who passed away, is going to be somewhere. But he's also a cynic, and he doesn't really believe in the afterlife, but he keeps being driven to find these places. And I love that setup. And so I think 1408 is one that just people don't think about when they think of really good Stephen King. I mean, I could list The Dead Zone is a great one, and Cujo's a really great adaptation. I love Flanagan's stuff is, of course, great. And Life of Chuck recently is kind of that Flanagan miracle movie where it's just like, this shouldn't work on the big screen, and it does. So, I mean, there's oddly more good Stephen King movies than there are bad ones, and there's a lot of bad ones. But yeah, I mean, the one that I'd go to bat for is probably 1408, because that's just one that people don't think about when they think of good Stephen King adaptations. I have to remind people it exists.
Oh, you're so right. That's a great choice. That short story is the only short story that shakes me to my soul. That one gets me so good. I love it. I think it's tremendous, but it really, really messes me up. It freaks me out.
It's a banger.
It's that phone. It's that phone from hell. Oh my God.
Yeah, that has all the non sequiturs and stuff. Yes. And because it's not just like, oh, I'm gonna kill you, I'm an evil room. It's the breakdown of the psyche, and it's I don't know, maybe there's something about it that feels more authentic. Like, if there really is a such thing as a haunted hotel room, it's probably something like that.
Yeah.
It's not going to be a ghost in a bathtub, sexy ghost that becomes a gross ghost. It's not. I don't think it's going to be that, or the twins in the hall, or whatnot. I think that what's more likely, if there really is something that's evil out there, it's not going to take the form of stuff. It's going to literally break you mentally. If there's bad juju, it's going to rewire your brain, and you're going to get trapped in your own mind, which is terrifying in and of itself.
Well said. Absolutely. All right, buddy, let's jump to some fun ones. These are a little bit rapid fire, but they don't have to be.
Yeah, hey, you know who you're talking to.
I love it. You can have as much as you want. Favorite Stephen King couple, friendship, or team?
I mean, the first thing that jumps to mind is The Losers. It's like that's a group. I guess you can call them a couple, and if you're based on the book, they're a septuple at a certain point, which has caused many a think piece, that decision.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's what jumps to mind. It's like, because it is such a long book, and it's probably my favorite Stephen King book, and it's the one that, again, I think it was timing. I read it when I was the age of the kids in the book, and then when I revisited it, I realized I was like exactly to the year, the age of, I think it was 39 or something.
Wow.
The age of the adults when it comes back. And I was like, fuck me. It's like, and it hit differently. It reads differently from those perspectives. But I love The Losers, and I love that whole dynamic. That's probably my favorite of the group. Like I said, even reading 11/22/63 and seeing a few of them pop up again, and I was just so happy. I mean, the quartet obviously is going to be up there too, but it's, I don't know. The Losers Club are the ones. Those are the ones that I wish I could be with. I wish I could be hanging out with those dudes, even if it meant facing an evil clown, you know?
Yeah, they're special. They really are exceptional characters. What King is talking about in childhood, and how that child never leaves us. Yeah. And then when we read that novel, it's like reconnecting, and it's sometimes not a fun feeling, but it's
right.
It's a real feeling. It's just very real.
Yeah, it's so good. And I mean, it's also such a great, the concept of this thing that can take the form of anything that can scare you, where you're fighting fear itself, which is, fascinating and it's deep and again meaty. Sometimes he writes stuff that's just meaty and it sticks in your maw.
Absolutely. We are gonna jump to your favorite Stephen King females.
Okay. He writes women fairly well for a guy that often, leads with describing what their boobs look like first. He's had some, better successes than others when it comes to the ladies, but I'd say, funnily enough, like a bad guy kind of jumped to mind first. That's Annie Wilkes.
Yeah.
I think she's so fascinating, that character, and it's something that I know that when you look at the movie, it's really hard to not see Kathy Bates in that role. But I implore anybody if they've just seen the movie, read the book too, because
Yes.
Annie is even deeper in the book. There's just so much more to her, but all the craziness is there. And matter of fact, the crazy is well off the pier from what's in the movie. I don't know, but there's something really deep and sad about Annie that I'm very compelled by. Beverly Marsh would be up there. I mean, like I said, when I read it for the first time, I had the world's biggest crush on Beverly. I was the fat kid, so the fact that not that I'm not the fat kid anymore, I'm the fat adult now, but the fat kid and the fact that the fat kid had the big crush on the girl and she wasn't horrified by it, you know what I mean? It's like, I saw a lot of myself in Ben, and so in a weird, like, parasocial to a fictional character way, I fell in love with Beverly the same way that Ben fell in love with Beverly. So she'd be up there. I also just love her as a character. She's so resilient. I mean, both as a child and the adult version of her. It's like she is the one that they entrust with taking the shot, right? She is the one that's dependable. She goes through hell. Her home life is fucking terrible. It's even worse than fighting a fucking child-killing clown, right?
Right.
And yet the fact that she's able to still be kind and the team member to these friends, essentially the glue that's holding this friend group together, I think that she's a little bit undersung as a character in it. I think that, Richie gets a lot of the attention because he's the most fun and
Right.
Bill's the hero or whatever. But I think Bev is up there. Detta Odetta. I love Susannah as much as the next guy, but man, do I love Detta Odetta, the split personality. It's like the two sides of her. Like you have the evil, conniving side, and then you have the kind side, and that Eddie falls in love with, but you don't know when the evil side's taken over. It's such a fun character. Again, problematic. I don't envy Mike having to figure how to make that come across.
Same.
Not, I don't know, too broad, as we say, because Detta gets very almost Spike Lee levels of what's it called?
Her commentary.
Yeah, her commentary. But I'll also say, listening to Stephen King read The Dark Tower, which you can find the tapes of it is really fun. It's one of my favorite things to hear him put on Odetta's voice. It's slightly cancelable, I will say, but hearing Stephen King say honk mafa is really interesting. But yeah, I love Odetta. I mean, there's a bunch. Sadie from 11/22/63. It's somebody that you believe that you fall in love with, just again alongside the main character. She's a little bit more of just. I mean, she has her own character, but she is a little bit more of just the romantic lead in that one. But you need somebody in that role that would actually make you wish that he could stay with her, and maybe it's not important to stop the Kennedy assassination if it means he can have a happy life with her, right?
Yeah.
So you need that. She's like the Peggy Carter, I guess, of that story. I don't know. There's a lot. Dolores Claiborne is one that people don't talk about a lot. I don't think it's the other Kathy Bates performance. Maybe I don't know, but she's such a great character too, and somebody that again is such a strong character, but grounded in reality. And that's one that I don't think a lot of people have read, and that's one I would highly recommend people give a shot to. And it's not what you think, but it is what you think. And I don't know. It's hard to describe. It's very Stephen Kingy, but it's also feels a little bit more like a stretch because it does play a little bit in the supernatural, but not really. I don't know. It's a great book, and she's just a wonderful, rich, no nonsense, takes no bullshit kind of character, and I love her for it. Yeah.
Great list, Eric. Oh my gosh, we got some stars.
I know I'm going to be, after this, I'm going to be like, oh, why didn't I mention Harry or, so I don't know, somebody.
I kick myself with this next question because I always say the wrong one, but now I finally have my favorite. But before we talk about that,
Yes.
really quick, because I know you've seen the Goonies.
Yeah.
Mama Fratelli,
Mhm.
that is Annie Wilkes to me. I always think that Kathy Bates is way too pretty, and they should have put Mama Fratelli for Annie because she's so ogreish and unattractive and evil. And I'm like, why did they?
And she's got the right voice to it.
Yeah,
Yeah. We serve tongue.
you got it.
Oh.
You got it. That's
it.
our Annie. That's my Annie. When I read the novel, that's what I think about. I think about Mama Fratelli.
I do like the little bit of sweetness that Kathy Bates brings to it. Like, even because you need to have a little bit of that, because you have to have the Annie that can say, you know, cock-a-doodie and it not sound like it's a mean, thoughtful thing. Somebody that little bit of innocence for all the horrible shit she's doing is still kind of there somewhere. And I think she really sells it. I get it, but I also wouldn't trade that performance.
You're right. It's perfect. It's iconic.
Right.
It's pretty great. And I do love the script decisions to make her more of like a crazed fan of Paul. It all works.
It works, yeah.
We've got just a handful, three, maybe four more. These are mostly fun little shooters. This one is asking your favorite Stephen King animal or pet or creature. It could also be a mythical thing.
Can I pick two?
Animals are limitless. You can have as many as you like.
Well, I'm going creature. Well, I guess they're technically both creatures. Creature first, Wolf from Talisman. I love Wolf. He is my favorite. Even when I was saying I reread Talisman and it didn't hold up as well, the Wolf stuff still held up well. I really love that character. I love the earnestness of it. I also love that when he wolfs out, he actually is, he's a legit threat to the people that he actually likes and loves. And I love that Jekyll and Hyde aspect of it, where he's somebody powerful to travel with. And it's just great when he's in human form, but he's a werewolf. And when he turns, there's enough in him that like knows what he's doing, but it's also tragic because that the wolf, the human part of him, the guy part of it, is kind of in the back seat and would have to watch his flock be torn apart by himself. You know, I don't know. I love Wolf, but when you go animal, it's got to be Oi, right? Cujo's great and all that, but Oi, everybody wants Oi, right?
Yeah.
Although I want the Oi that's in my head and not the Oi that it took me listening to the audiobook version of The Dark Tower, where it's pointed out that Oi speaks like a ball hooligan or something. And in my mind, it's like, Oi, Oi. And instead it's like, Oi, yo, hey, Oi, what you doing? You know, it's like a fucking Bob Hoskins character or something. I don't like that so much. I like the Oi that's in my head that kind of looks like a fox mixed with a raccoon with the gold ringed eyes, and he's got a little, you know, Oi. That's the Oi I want, not the Bob Hoskins version of it.
Oi is so precious. I'm really, really dreading what's ahead because I am very nervous that when I started my tower journey, it really took me a while to vibe with Roland because I could see all the red flags of this dude. And I was like, you're going to kill everybody. You don't give a shit, do you, bro?
Yeah.
Like, this is your mission and everybody's got to sink or swim with you.
Right.
But then you eventually learn to love him and there's so much respect there. And he is this office of gunslinger, which is very honorable and prestigious and ancient and sexy and all those things. So I'm with him, but I'm like, God damn it. Everybody's
the mission above all. No, yeah.
You got it. I really love Azrael the cat from Dr. Sleep. I love that little angel cat.
The one that goes and picks all the people that are about to die and goes and curls up. It's funny, Stephen King I remember clocking it when I read it because I had seen the same story that King mentioned in the interviews where he's like, that there's actually a cat at a nursing home that like they did it was like a Yahoo story or something. Where it's just like this cat, you know, knows when people are going to die and they go and curl up and it's become so well known on that floor that the staff will get shit ready when they see the cat going in there. And it's just some kind of sixth sense that this cat has. And you could view it as that or you can view it as the cat's causing people to die. And I love that King took that thing and was like, no, this is just comfort, as Danny's comfort to these people as they're passing.
Oh, my heart.
That's a really good one. Yeah. I'm sorry, I didn't go with the deep cut. I went with the obvious one.
the best one. Oi is the best one. So I would probably have given you judgy eyes if Oi wasn't said.
He's loyal.
He is. He's so precious.
He's smart. Smart boy.
Okay, 1, 2, 3. Yeah, 1, 2, 3.
Okay.
Maybe 4, as I see
Sure.
a missed check mark. Actually, we kind of already covered this. This is a question that I cooked up because I read Billy Summers and I super had a crush on that guy.
Uh-huh.
I've never had a crush on a King character, and so I wanted to ask, does anybody else fancy a King character? Either romantically or bromantically?
Oh, I mean, there's lots of bromances. Like I said, I have a bromance with Chris Chambers from The Body, for sure. That sounds weird because he's like a 12-year-old kid. I probably shouldn't say that. But it's so weird because my other, like, the last one I can remember, well, Sadie from 11/22/63 I fell in love with while I was reading that book. Just something in how she's written. Again, it's not like she's the traditional, like, she almost reads like a trad wife, which isn't great, but there's just something about her, especially, she gets scarred, right? And like she hates it so much, but like he still, it's like, no, it's like, it doesn't matter, it's you, right? There's just something so pure and she's strong in her way, but it's not the way of like, oh, we're just going to turn her into Ellen Ripley, right?
Right.
So I'd say Sadie's the non-problematic one, but if I'm going to say, I've already said when I was 12 years old and I read it, I'm like, I was in love with Beverly Marsh. And it's interesting, though, you talk about that portal back to childhood when you're reading that, because I have that feeling. And I feel that kind of falling in love with her all over again. But I also feel going, why am I a middle-aged man falling in love with a girl, like a little girl? But it's like, I'm not doing that I'm not, I'm more projecting myself into when I was a kid reading that again and going, I remember how strong that emotion was when I was reading this. It's not like I'm sitting here daydreaming about prepubescent Beverly Marsh, but like I did have that connection with her. And so again, that might get me canceled, but that's that's my honest thought on whenever that you pose that question. That's the first thing that jumped into my mind was Beverly Marsh was me as 12 years old reading that book and just falling in love with the redhead.
She's great. Bev is a real treasure. She's very, very special. So I'm happy.
Yeah.
I support this 1,000%.
Okay, good. In the most non-creepy way possible, I want to underline.
Oh yeah, it's 100%. It's young. It's 12-year-old Eric.
Yes, 100%.
I got that immediately.
Okay, good.
This question has evolved over the years.
Okay.
I made this question after I read Under the Dome, and I wanted to kill Big Jim Rennie and his son, Junior, with my bare hands. I just was overflowing with hate. So that's where this question started. But over the years, one of the things that are a given in life as you grow older is the goth horror metal people are the kindest, sweetest angels, and the yoga granola people are mean, very mean. And so all of the King people, I would ask this question about who would you, if you could put hands, if you could harm a character violently, and they're all so sweet and gentle, nobody would go for it. Nobody would give me the bloodlust answer I was craving. So what I did was just reposition the pieces a bit. So this question is now asking, which Stephen King character would you save from a fire? And which Stephen King character would you throw into the fire?
Oh, there's so many people to save and so many people to throw. I'm gonna pick characters from the same book. We've already talked about it. I'm throwing Percy Wetmore into the fire, and I'm gonna save John Coffey.
Yay!
Like, I know that shit's bad for him, and he kind of wants the out, and I get it. But in this fantasy scenario, I am going to orchestrate it so John gets to live happily with animals, with children. He doesn't have to heal if he doesn't want to, but if he does, it's all up to him. He can be on a farm and live a happy, peaceful life, taking care of animals, for the rest of his life. That's what I'm going to do. He's going to be away from the prying eyes of society and all the glass shards of hatred that he says he can feel in his head at all times. That's what I would do. It's rough anytime revisiting that book or that movie. Again, I think that's a criminally underrated Stephen King movie too.
Yes.
It was a huge success, but nobody ever mentions it in the same breath as Shawshank and all that stuff. And I think Shawshank is a perfect movie, but I think in a lot of ways the emotional resonance of the Green Mile adaptation is some of the strongest of any King adaptation. So I'm going to go there. I'm going to go save John Coffey, and Percy Wetmore is he goes very slowly with a dry sponge, I say.
Yes, barbecue.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that answer makes me a little emotional because it's so good. Because I 1,000% agree. Green Mile is a top 5 King for me.
Great.
Darabont's film, when I hit play before the credits are rolling, and I'm crying just because the score is so emotional for me. And
heaven.
Oh my God,
heaven.
yes. The Green Mile is one of my favorite King endings.
Mm.
Incredible. I think it's perfect and stunning.
A sneaky dark ending too, by the way.
Very much so. But oh my God, I'm feeling all the feels with that answer.
Okay.
So I'm so grateful to you.
Oh, good.
Such a great answer that melted my heart. So thanks. Thank you for that.
Oh, good. It makes up for the creepy Beverly Marsh crush. So.
Not creepy at all. It's
Okay,
12-year-old Eric. He can like who he likes.
Right.
2 more, just because I'm greedy
Please.
over here. So I know, listening to the Kingcast, I've heard you guys recommend King novels to brand newbies. I wanted to highlight the really awesome episode with Tom Hiddleston.
Mm-hmm.
That was so fun on the other end of that, like hearing what you guys recommend to this very romantic British actor.
Right.
And so I was fist pumping for Dead Zone, but I was also really excited at the other selections.
Mm-hmm.
This question is asking, like, when you talk to a brand new Stephen King person,
right,
what are you recommending to them?
I think that the safest thing to do is recommend a short story collection, especially if they're not. This is what I would do if it's somebody who's not a seasoned reader, right? If it's somebody who doesn't read a lot but is kind of curious, and a short story collection like Skeleton Crew, I think, is probably one of the best. And I think this is one of the things I recommended to Hiddleston. Not that he doesn't read a lot, but it's easier, and I think more people will do it if you say it's short stories. So you're going to get a lot of different flavors of Stephen King. You're going to get a lot of his strengths told in bite-sized form. Right, so if you read Skeleton Crew, you're gonna the Jaunt, I think, is in that one, and that's one of my all-time favorite short stories. And it's a very creepy story. It's one of those. I think the scariest like half page that King's ever written is the last page of the Jaunt. And so you get that, but you also get kind of fun stories and goofy stories, and there's a crime story, and that it's like you get kind of a sample platter of the best of Stephen King, and it's not a huge commitment. I want somebody to build up to It or The Stand, right, or get into The Dark Tower. But man, could I think it's real dangerous to say the best thing you should read is 11/22/63. It's only 900 pages.
Right.
I think that's a huge commitment for people. So I think Bresnikan had a really interesting thought whenever Hiddleston was grilling us for recommendations, and he went to something like The Dead Zone. I do think you need to tailor it to the taste of who you're talking to.
That's true.
So I think that it's a good catch-all, like a baseline to say Skeleton Crew, but if you're talking to somebody who is really into dark shit, then I'd say Pet Sematary is a really good entry point because it's dark. He paints a tone and just this grody feel, under your skin feel. It's sad. It's sad horror. It's trauma horror. It's like A24 trauma horror, right? So if the person asking is wanting that kind of stuff, that's great. I think that Brez was really smart when he was talking about Dead Zone, because I think that he saw what was drawing Hiddleston to Life of Chuck, which was just that really complex character and kind of sad character at the center of it. And, I think he was like...
Yeah, Johnny.
Yeah, I think Johnny is... something about Johnny is that I love to kind of dive into when we have guests pick this title, is the fact that at some point I don't know if he ever realizes it really. We realize it as the reader, even subconsciously, that every time he helps somebody, he hurts himself, right? Like there's a whole in the book, you actually kind of find out that the more that he uses his powers, the more like a tumor is growing in his brain. And that's what the dead zone is, right? It's like this mass is just growing bigger and bigger and will eventually kill him. So you have it literalized, but like pretty much anytime he helps anybody, something is taken from him, right? His teaching job is taken from him when he helps catch the strangler, right? And then he gets the job tutoring that kid who he kind of falls in love with and bonds with, and gets very protective of, and to the point, in the book he's like a high schooler, but to the point where, when he warns the dad about it, he uses his powers to try to stop it and stop this bad thing from happening, and he loses his connection with this kid. Like, every time he helps somebody using his powers, he hurts himself. And I think having something like that as the meat of the story was a very smart recommendation from Bresnikan. I'd very much say that I think Misery is a great quick read. In terms of his recent stuff, I think later, it's just a page turner. And I think that that's really crucial to get for Newbie King, is to get him a page turner. Misery is a page turner. It's just however he ends his chapters, you just instantly need to go to the next one to see what's coming up. Even if you've seen the movie and you know what's happening, you're still hooked into the journey. So that would be my recommendation. I mean, a little bit of a cop-out by saying, you kind of have to tailor it to whoever's asking, but I think broadly, finding that page turner that fits with the shit that they like, that's the real secret to King.
This is so smart. I love this strategic way of going about it, because that's something I need to get savvier with, because I always want to recommend different seasons, but Apt Pupil is such a pit. It's so problematic.
It is.
It's awful.
It's kind of incredible because of it when you look at it, and it's also, gotta say, it's pretty prescient. Like that whole the youth getting caught up in a new Nazi movement.
You're not wrong.
Gee, I wonder what's happening now. Sorry, the soapbox is going back. The soapbox is going back.
That's okay. You're actually right. As horrifying as it is to acknowledge, you're not wrong.
What's crazy about that one is that it forces you to live in was it Todd? Is his name, I think? Yeah, you live in Todd's head.
I hate it.
It's not. I mean, that's really at the core, because the story itself, it's bad. But you've read lots of bad stories, but usually you get to live in the space of a good person experiencing this horror and trying to do good and be that helper that Mr. Rogers says to look for in the disaster, right? Not so much in Apt Pupil. In Apt Pupil, you're living in the kid who's flirting with fun Holocaust dreams and liking it. There is no respite in that story.
You're totally right. Apt Pupil is the only novella that I'm usually very kind and accepting, or I'll have like a real objective. And with Apt Pupil, I'm like, fuck this story. I fuck this thing, because I hate the way it makes me feel.
Yeah.
I do find it psychologically fascinating with the Kurt Todd grossness.
They feed each other.
Yes.
They bring out the worst in each other. Yep.
1,000%. But every time I read Apt Pupil, I'm like, fuck this shit. I hate it. That's the only one in the history of King canon. It's the only one. I hate it.
It's I don't hate it, but I clock exactly what you're talking about. I had that reaction to a movie recently. I had that reaction to Eddington. I like a lot of the people involved in this. I like some of the pieces of the thing, but I just was so repulsed by the overall theme and message of the movie that I was just like, I just reject it. I don't want to go back to it.
This is our final question. This is sort of like the locking of the door, so to speak, or the turning the key over, asking your top 5 Stephen King titles.
Okay.
And what puts them in the top 5. You are allowed to have more than one.
Right.
Some people game the system and they'll do like a whole collection for one, which I don't care, whatever you want to do.
Right.
But it's really sort of making you choose and do a hard thing with 5.
You see this every time you see a Letterboxd interview. They'll say, "Oh, all right, I'll pick my 4 favorites for now," or like in this moment.
Right.
I think there's a few bedrock ones. It will always be top 5 for me, just for what it meant to me when I read it. I think the staying power of Pennywise the Clown is, again, as we were talking about earlier, as what it represents, where it's all fear. I love that it's a coming-of-age story that's kind of disguised in a thing where there can be a Wolfman and the Mummy and pretty much any horror, everything. I think King called it like his kitchen sink horror story, where like everything, fucking Godzilla, like I think Mothra's in it, not Godzilla himself, but like Mothra is in it. It's like there's pretty much anything that you can be afraid of is in it. And I'll always love it. I think it's so ambitious. And I'm also got to say, I love these long novels where you just kind of never ending story your shit, you know, your shit in it as you inject yourself. And it, at a certain point, it feels like you're turning pages and it's never ending. And you're just going to be living with these characters and you're okay with it. It will probably always be the top of the list for me. I'm not going to pick the entirety of the Dark Tower. You know, I think that there is an argument to be made, and we can also talk about that once you complete your journey, where the story, like I said, the final book to me strengthens the other books.
Okay.
And so there is an argument to be made to include them all as one, but I will say that the one that, like, I love the drawing of the three. It's the one that really, really hooked me into the series. The Wastelands is my favorite Dark Tower book.
Yeah, that's fun.
It's the fun one. It's the one where the quartet is actually, they're not being drawn together. They are together. They're training together. They're going on adventures together. They're meeting cannibal groups and giant bears with rotting. They're robot bears, but their flesh is rotting and have maggots, and they have a radar dish on the top of their head. And it's the fun fantasy action horror book. That's the one that, like, I get the most excited when I revisit the Dark Tower series. And that's the one I get excited to get to. And so that is, I wouldn't even say it's the best written. I think Wizard and Glass is the best written of the books.
Oh yeah.
I don't shit on the Gunslinger in the way that a lot of fellow Dark Tower fans, including Mr. Scott Wampler, would often do. He would often recommend people start with drawing of the three, which I think is a big no-no personally. But his logic is that first book is metaphysical, it's episodic, it's kind of hard, it's not really its own self-contained story, it's more of a setup to what's to come, and I get it, and drawing of the three is where the hook is landed, but I also think that, you know, you kind of have to go through that prologue that is the Gunslinger to fully appreciate what happens in drawing of the three. Whether it's, I mean, just purely from the character of Jake himself and what he means to Roland and what he means to the second book. So the Wastelands, though, would be my pick. So that's 2. Revival, I told you, is a top 5 King for me, and I stand by it.
Love it.
It's it might be a little bit of the, do I think it's as classic as Pet Sematary? No, but I think I get a little bit of that indie band. You know, like, I like them because they're not popular, and I get to tell people about them and introduce them to people. I think there's a little bit of that, and I like fighting for the underdog, which that is definitely, if there is a such thing as an underdog Stephen King book, that's going to be it. But genuinely brilliant, slow burn, character-driven, existentially terrifying horror book. And I love it. I love the characters. I love how it feels different in tone from most of King's things. I love that he nails the landing. I just love everything about them. I love the feel. I love the whole concept of the secret electricity, and anytime I see that Intrepid logo that Flanagan uses, I just kind of get a little flare of like, oh, is he actually doing Revival now? Nope, it's not it. But, you know, a preacher against a lightning storm does it for me. What can I say? So that leaves, what, 2 more?
2 more. Quick question. I am bursting. You Like It Darker has a story called The Dreamers. Did you feel the vibe?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's definitely, if you're listening to this and you haven't listened to the Kingcast, I started it, and I mentioned my friend Scott Wampler. I started that show with him. We ran it for about 4 years, and then he passed away suddenly last year. And You Like It Darker had just come out. The Dreamers is the story at the very end of the book. It's not early on, but we had heard that this was very revival-esque leading up to it. So he got the book, and the last Stephen King thing Scott read before he passed was The Dreamers, and he loved it.
Oh my gosh.
So that was the thing, because, you know, he and I, like I said, we're both on the same wavelength of loving revival. And The Dreamers is one that I recommend. When we had James Wan came on the Kingcast, and around the time that The Monkey came out, and I recommended to him because he did that kind of thing. He's like, hey, so, you know, he produces fucking every horror thing that you like, right? So he was like, hey, is there any Stephen King thing? Yeah, I think we asked him, was there any Stephen King thing he wants to do? And he was like, essentially said, give me a recommendation. And I was like, you need to read The Dreamers. And that one could fit in that kind of Conjuring vibe of the James Wan universe, right? Where it's very Revival. It's a very similar story to Revival. I think it's probably even more fucked up. The things that, well, you never leave this realm. You kind of see what's beyond the veil in Revival. You only see what crosses over from beyond the veil in Dreamers, and it's not pretty. It's not fun, and it's really creepy. And I could see like again like Prince of Darkness era John Carpenter could make this like one of the scariest movies ever. I love it.
Oh my gosh, I did not know that about Scott, so it kind of makes me love it even more now, and I'm just so thrilled to know that bit of info. That's awesome. Number 4.
This also might be recency bias, but this is one that I've been holding up for a long time. I think it's Stephen King's first masterpiece, and that's The Long Walk.
Yeah.
The movie's really good. I've seen it. I can say that much.
Oh, good.
Yep, it's super good, and the story, I revisited the story fairly recently, like reading it was released as a Richard Bachman book, but it was the book that King wrote in college. It was like one of his first novels that then he kind of threw into a trunk, and then wrote a bunch of short stories, wrote some other stuff that never worked out, and then wrote Carrie and exploded. And then he got to a point early on in his career where it wasn't common for authors to release more than one book a year, and he had all these trunk novels. He had all these things like, I got all this stuff, and the publisher was like, no, you're going to wear out your name. He still wanted to release them, so he came up with Richard Bachman. Wham, bam, there you go. And he released The Long Walk as one of the books, and it's by far the best Richard Bachman book.
Oh, yeah.
And I think it's incredible. And this is like him in that Running Man mode. If you're familiar with that, where it's like the dystopian future,
yes,
kind of game show thing, but here it's his allegory for Vietnam, where it's all these teenagers being fed into the war machine as the Americans cheer from the sidelines or whatever, as they're watching their young men of that generation being blown away, right? Right in front of their face.
Totally.
And it's just from a character work perspective, it's incredible. And I think it's definitely a favorite of mine. And I'm very happy we finally have a movie and that it is good.
That's so encouraging. I'm so excited.
This is the hardest one, though, is picking 5 because that locks out every other one, right?
It does. It's really hard. I know the challenge.
I'm going to go with another one of his long books. And this is the one that I think that within 50 years, it's going to be like regular in the English curriculum. And I think it's The Stand. I think that's his great American novel, right? It's his kind of answer to Lord of the Rings. It's a journey book. It is so epic in the way that he paints that world. Again, it's a world we recognize, but it's slightly off.
Yes.
And it's a world that we can relate to. It's a book that feeds into kind of your post-apocalyptic daydreams of like, what would I do in that scenario? What would I survive? Would I be drawn to the bad guys? Would I be drawn to the good guys? Character work is just unparalleled in it. Like we said, Randall Flagg's a great bad guy. It's just another one of those books where it feels like if you were cursed to read one book for your entire life and it never ended, but you're always following those characters, I think The Stand is a book that you could do that with.
Yes.
And not be wanting to go too crazy. I'll pick The Stand, even though there are books that I like more than that, but I think that in terms of importance, in terms of, it was also a big deal for me. I read that around the time I read it, and I think I read those probably back to back. And I'm just like, oh, this is what reading is. All reading is like this. All books are like this. And then you start reading literally every other writer and going, oh, nobody can pull this off. Nobody can pull off a 1,200-page book that I'm this invested in. So I'll pick The Stand. I'm comfortable with that.
Amazing list. Do you have like a sneaky 1 or 2 honorable mentions that just missed the 5?
Oh my God. I mean, of course. I mean, there's. I mean, the problem is that I start opening the door to that, then like 8 more books start trying to come in. I mean, I'd probably put in Skeleton Crew. I'd put in a short story collection. The Jaunt is one of my favorite things he's ever written. Crouch End is one of my favorite things he's ever written. That's from Nightmares and Dreamscapes. I wouldn't put that whole collection in there, but I think that the honorable mentions would probably go to that. It would go to maybe a novella collection like Different Seasons. I think that those are the ones that I think are the richest. Different Seasons in particular. I mean, we talked about At Pupil being kind of the, it's effective, obviously, but I mean, The Body is incredible. Rita Hayworth in The Shawshank Redemption is incredible. Breathing Method, I think, is okay. Like, I like it. I like the setup more than I like the execution of it. And I kind of wish, talk about sequels, that might actually be a good sequel book, like getting that
The Manhattan Club.
Manhattan Club where it's just all these old fucking dudes that get together and smoke pipes and, you know, mahogany rooms and tell different ghost stories, and, you know, some of them being maybe more true than others and all that stuff. That's fun. I mean, he's playing, I think that's a Peter Straub invention, right? Isn't that the ghost story? But I like King taking that and running with it. Fuck, I mean, Billy Summers was so fucking good. I loved Billy
Yes!
Summers. I loved Later in the recent ones. I mean, Pet Sematary, Misery, you know, those are all timer. I don't have any. I mean, The Shining, of course. The Shining, it almost feels like when you're talking about like great Stephen King adaptations, going like, well, of course you have to give a slot to Shawshank. Like Shawshank is always going to be one of the best movies ever made from a Stephen King thing. And I feel that way with The Shining when you're talking about the books. It's just like, you know, it's almost not fair to give it a slot because it should just become, you know, of course The Shining is going to be that one. It had too much impact on horror as a genre. It had too much impact on film as a genre with the adaptation, whether King liked it or not. It has too much impact on, you know, the literary horror that came after. And it's just, you know, it's great. It's incredible. It's deep. It's creepy. There's still some, I don't get scared when reading Stephen King. I don't know, Kim, do you like legitimately get scared when you read horror books? Like, I feel like my horror calluses are so thick at this point that I'm more, especially when reading a book and there's not like a jump scare or something that can happen. It's rare for me to actually be creeped out while reading, but there's 2 moments in The Shining that do that for me. So
Yeah.
So do you have that? Do you get creeped out?
In general horror, yes. Because
Yeah.
I got some triggers.
Okay.
And they're general everyday lady ones, like sexual violence. That's pretty terrible. So
Right.
some of those I navigate. I also don't do well with the torture and imprisonment. So Misery is actually really hard for me, but it's so masterful. I don't care. I just try and read it with a buddy and
Right.
suffer together.
Right.
No, with King, my love affair with King's writing is the last line of King Kong, which is Beauty Killed the Beast.
Yeah.
This guy, for me, does it better than anybody else has or will. And so even though I do get scared sometimes, I always focus on the craft. And then I'm like, calm down, you're fine. Look at how he's building the house, and then you won't be scared anymore.
That's true. That's a good way to look at it. Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, The Shining would have to be in my runners up for sure. I mean, it probably honestly should be in the top 5, but you asked top 5 favorites, not the ones that academically would be argued are the best.
And I'm so glad you brought up The Shining, though, because, man, I mean, Jack Torrance in the film versus Jack in the book is just 180. It's a real sad, because we care for Jack at the end. We see that redeeming arc. He was a good dad. He was, you know, he was trying.
Kind of. They also, don't forget, they also like kind of go out of their way to talk about maybe hit and running a fucking teenager. And
there was Stovington prep was very real. You are correct.
So, I mean, in a lot of ways, like the Jack that's painted in the book is even more unforgiving than the Jack in the movie. But you're right. The thing that's missing is there isn't that moment that Mike Flanagan very thoughtfully brought full circle with Dr. Sleep, where he gave Danny his father's moment of going, no, like, I'm actually going to come up and fight this thing and save my family.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's what's missing is that, yes, I will agree. I mean, it's not wrong, King's criticism of Jack Torrance, you know, as portrayed by Nicholson, being crazy from the beginning. But, I mean, a lot of that's just kind of shorthanded movies. Like, I think that people have come around on Shelley Duvall's performance in that film now, which is great because I never really bought into the shrieking dish rag or whatever King called her thing. It's like, yes, she is. She's at an emotional high in that movie. And yes, she's very broad and theatrical in her performance, but it fits the tone. Like, the movie doesn't work without that. There's something about what she brings to that, as kind of cartoony as it gets sometimes, that is what solidifies the horror of the movie. And one thing I will say, you know, kind of as a closing idea here is that, you know, I recommend people that might be kind of caught up on the book versus movie debate to view them as companion pieces versus fighting versions of the story. Because I think when you do that, you realize that Kubrick actually kind of left a lot of the room for Wendy Torrance's inner dialogue. You can read it actually kind of happening on her face. She just never has the moment where she talking to herself in her head about, is it better to be here in an abusive, trapped environment, or to go to my only place I can go is my mother, who is even more abusive and even more trapping and subjecting that to my son.
Right.
And so there's a lot more depth to Wendy in the book because you can get in her head, but I think Kubrick leaves room for that you can read, if you read the book, you can read that into Shelley Duvall's performance. So I think where it becomes tougher is the Nicholson of it, where Nicholson's going to be Nicholson, and that's the iconic thing of it. And that's the one place where I'll really agree with King, that I can understand. I think it works beautifully for the movie. I understand why he's butthurt about it. I understand that that's something that he put a lot of himself into, a lot of his own fears and worries about him being the monster, with his addiction issues, with his alcoholism, him worried about hurting his kids, and being the one that would hurt his kids. And to see that be done so broadly and theatrically without any of the, but ultimately you're a good dad and you'll save the day at the end. I understand why that hurts King to watch, but from a movie fan perspective, I think both the book and the movie can live together.
I love that. That's really wise. Oh my gosh. Mr. Vespe, this whole experience has been a tremendous honor. Thank you for speaking with me today.
Of course. Thanks for having me. And sorry I talked everybody's ear off. That's what you get when you bring podcasters on the podcast. We just want to talk. So
zero apologies necessary, buddy. I think I'm so thrilled that you took us to church. You took us to the Church of King, which is what we're all here for. Talk about combating existential dread. Since COVID, I have clung to the writing of Stephen King like a buoy in the dark ocean of nothingness. But talking to constant readers is my favorite thing. It just gives me wings. And so this has opened up a whole new room in my heart. So thank you so much for coming onto the show.
Of course, it's a pleasure.
Before we say farewell, can you let everybody know what Kingcast is up to, what you've got going on for the rest of 2025, any updates or anything you want to share?
Sure. Yeah, no, we're up to a lot. We've been having a pretty banger of a year. We kicked it off with Stephen King himself coming back on the show. And
amazing.
Kind of blessing the Anthony Bresnikan as my new co-host. He's a Vanity Fair author. He is an author. He writes his own fiction too, but he's a Vanity Fair writer. He's a great pop culture writer, great interviewer, and I'm very lucky to have him as my new co-host. It's hard to fill Scott's shoes, but Brez is his own personality, and he's great. We kicked the year off with Stephen King, and we've had some pretty incredible folks along the way. A lot of the Life of Chuck folks, including Tom Hiddleston. We just wrapped up. This has been a banner year for Stephen King.
Yes, huge year.
Plenty of stuff. We just moderated the Hall H panel in Comic-Con for The Long Walk. Mark Hamill, no need to brag, was there. And we just interviewed Ben Barnes. He's the next, as of the recording of this, he's the next guest on the show. He's starring in the Institute TV series, another Stephen King adaptation. And so if you like listening to us kind of bullshit around Stephen King, kind of loosely sometimes, I will admit sometimes we get lost in the weeds on side stories and whatnot, but we do talk broadly about Stephen King every episode. And we have our guests usually come in and pick a title that they like, and then we'll grill them on that. So you can listen to that wherever you get your podcasts. It's on Fangoria's podcast network and available, Apple, Spotify, all the usual places.
Thank you once more, good buddy. This was amazing.
Well, thank you for having me.
Okay, listeners, that is a wrap. Cut and print. I hope you enjoyed that. Vespe is so much fun. Oh, what a guy. As Mr. Vespe said, make sure you keep it dialed into Kingsize for this very big and poppin' Stephen King 2025. As you guys know, there is so much going on. So many stories and films and TV series still on the horizon. And per Mr. Eric Vespe, please keep an eye out for the Kingcast Patreon episode for Never Flinch. I was so honored to be a guest, and it is indeed a spicy little pepper of an episode. It gets political, ladies and gentlemen, but Bresnikan and Vespe are great. I think I'm an odd little mouse in the middle, but boy, was it great to be there. The whole thing went by in a blur, so I hope I didn't say anything too cringe or criminally stupid, but I may have, so please forgive me now. Huge bear hug thanks to Mr. Eric Vespe for providing such a meaty constant reader interview. That's how we like 'em, filled to the brim and spilling over. Okay, my dudes and dudettes. So, the last time we spoke, I told you I was having a bit of a hard time with the novel Song of Susannah, and sadly, that is still the case. Since we last spoke, I finished the novel. True story, had a mini panic attack, completely spiraled. I did some research, talked to some friends, all while still panicking over my confusion, and then finally I calmed down enough to realize I have to read the book again. I have to read the book again in order to make an episode that won't sound completely idiotic and insane. But my friends, I don't know what happened. Suddenly, it felt like I knew nothing. It felt like I had never read a Dark Tower novel before. I felt waterboarded by lore. And this is one of those novels that has really, unfortunately, shaken the foundations of my solo podcast endeavoring. I'm still at a loss for what happened. I don't know. It could be additional life stressors, or it's just that this is a really challenging book to interpret by myself when I'm spinning out on so many concepts that I may need to wait to learn more about, unsure. The good news is that I'm calm now, and I'm in the middle of my second read-through of the Song of Susannah. And though I'm not exactly understanding things more clearly, I feel I'm able to articulate my ideas better and actually form cohesive thoughts on what I'm observing. So that's good. I will at least be able to form complete sentences. Those sentences might be incorrect still, but we're just gonna make it work. Eventually, down the road, I'll really need to study/figure out at a later date why Song of Susannah absolutely derailed me. But for now, I'm just trying to survive it. So in theory, boys and girls, fingers crossed, our next episode will be The Song of Susannah. For those interested in additional Stephen King content, please head over to my Patreon, The Dance Macabre with Kim C., where right now I'm currently watching and reporting on the 2025 limited series of The Institute from MGM+, and I'm gearing up to explore the brand new short story collection, The End of the World as We Know It, which will be released August 19th, 2025, and that too will be exclusively on the Patreon. So I highly encourage you step into the Patreon water with me and let's be friends. For $222 US, patreon.com/dancewithkimc. That's dance with an S. That's all I got for now, dear ones. If you'd like to say hello, I'm always available on the socials as well as underratedsk@gmail.com. I would love if you would say hello. Thank you so much for listening. I'll talk to you all very soon.